I finally broke up with Sophia, the girlfriend I had been doting on for 3 years, and then directly went back to my hometown for a blind date. A friend asked me, "You like Sophia so much. Can you really let go?" I sneered. "I'm not stupid. A girl like her is okay for a casual relationship, but if I were to marry her, wouldn't I be miserable for the rest of my life?" Just then, a cold and familiar voice suddenly came from the side. "Is this the reason you dumped me? Now, let's start the story. If you like it, remember to subscribe." I remember when I was dragging my luggage back home, I saw a man opening the door and walking out. He was wearing a black casual jacket and high-top Martin boots, with an old-school skull tattoo on his arm. I recognized him as David, the guitarist of Sophia's band. He was a young guy in his early 20s, strong and energetic. I instinctively hid behind the corridor door without coming out. After a while, Sophia walked out from behind him, wearing a tight, low-cut short skirt. She leaned against the wall with a dazed look and lit a cigarette. Her long, wet hair hung casually over her shoulders, and a few drops of water slid down her hair, meandering across her delicate collarbone. Moments later, she gracefully walked up behind David, ran her fingertips across his neck, and said in a seductive voice, "Why are you in such a hurry to leave today?" As she spoke, Sophia stood on tiptoe, slowly leaned closer, and gently kissed his lips, leaving a faint touch. Then she added, "Next time you come, sister will wear a maid outfit and play with you." David's eyes lit up, and he tightly hugged her waist and kissed her back. After the kiss, he said, "Sister, you like to play so much. I'm afraid I'll die in your hands sooner or later." In the entanglement, Sophia grabbed his collar, trying to drag him back into the room. However, David said a bit anxiously, "Sophia, I have a performance later." Sophia got off him, half angry and half coquettish. "You're so heartless. You were just calling me baby, and now you're leaving just like that." But Sophia wasn't really angry. She blew a kiss to David with a beaming face and said, "I'll be waiting for you. See you tomorrow." After he left, I walked out from behind the corridor door. Sophia seemed surprised that I would come back suddenly. She was stunned for a moment, but then her expression quickly returned to normal. "Why didn't you say you were coming back in advance?" I looked at her for a while and replied, "It was too late. I was afraid that calling would disturb your rest." The ambiguous red marks on Sophia's neck were still fresh, but she didn't seem the least bit guilty. She took my arm and walked into the room. "James, I'm so hungry. Make me something to eat." She coquettishly sat on the sofa and turned on the TV, as if nothing had happened just now. Seeing that I didn't move for a long time, Sophia frowned. "What's wrong?" Then, as if she suddenly realized something, a charming smile appeared in her peach-shaped eyes. She got up, came close to me, and pressed herself tightly against me. Her breath, which smelled of iris, lingered ambiguously around my neck. Her hand slowly reached into my waistband. "Then eat me first, and then eat." Her hands that play bass all year round are long and dexterous, and when her fingers stroke across my skin, they give people a slightly cool touch. I closed my eyes and wearily pushed her away. I did like Sophia's body. When I chased her, it was mainly because of her good looks. But perhaps it was because I had just finished a long-distance flight, or maybe because of the man just now. At this moment, I just felt tired and had no mood at all. Sophia was rarely rejected by me. She was stunned, and then her face darkened slightly. "What's wrong with you?" I lowered my head and saw a black mass on the carpet. It was a pair of torn to shreds stockings. Sophia obviously saw it too. A flash of panic crossed her eyes. She quickly bent down and grabbed the stockings in her hand, not looking at me anymore. Her lips trembled slightly, as if she wanted to say something, but finally remained silent. The living room was filled with the anxiety of silence. I took out a cigarette from the cigarette case and lit it. The crisp sound of the menthol burst bead being crushed could be heard. She said in a low voice, "His rental house lease expired, and he had nowhere to live, so I let him stay here for one night." "We didn't do anything." I looked at Sophia. Our converging gazes were separated by the white smoke. We couldn't see each other's expressions clearly, but both of us knew how lame this excuse was. This wasn't the first time Sophia had cheated. She probably was born to like seducing men. When I first saw her, she was like this. At that time, several of my dormitory brothers were very into rock and roll and insisted on taking me to see a well-known rock band's performance. They said the female bassist of the band was an absolute stunner, and it was not easy to get tickets. I had never been interested in rock and roll, so I was unenthusiastic. That was until Sophia took the stage. Sophia was wearing a tight leather dress, with black garters on her thighs faintly visible. As the straps wound around, her soft skin bulged slightly, full of tension. Her long hair was casually draped, and her curly red hair was particularly dazzling under the stage lights. As soon as she appeared, she became the focus of the crowd. Sophia lifted her eyes, and the blurred lights reflected into her amber-like pupils, with a hint of flirtation. Her face was like the most expensive luxury item. That was the first time I went to see a band performance. The fans in the audience were going crazy, and the shouts almost broke through the roof. My eyes swept across the noisy crowd, and our eyes met for a moment. Soon, she looked away. The music that night was very nice, but I didn't hear anything clearly because at that moment, everything was silent, and I could only hear the booming of my own heartbeat. After getting off the stage, several brothers rushed backstage to ask for contact information, and I was among them. I had been single for 23 years, and this was the first time I took the initiative to ask a girl for her WeChat. Sophia didn't refuse anyone and flamboyantly scanned everyone's QR codes. A year later, all the people who were pursuing her gave up, but I was still persevering. Later, perhaps my persistence finally touched her. Sophia agreed to my confession, and I became her boyfriend until now. But I knew that in the past few years together, Sophia had never really liked me. Or rather, she liked me, liked my tolerance and generosity. She had been caught cheating by me many times, but every time as long as she gave me a somewhat acceptable excuse, I would forgive her. She had said many times that I wasn't her type, and she was with me just because I was good to her. She even joked that she would dump me when she found her true love one day. Over the years, our relationship had been maintained only by my constant tolerance. I said, "You promised me that you wouldn't cheat anymore." My voice was hoarse as I looked at the tattered Balenciaga lettered stockings in Sophia's hand. A flash of mockery crossed Sophia's eyes, and she didn't seem ashamed at all. "You actually believed that? It was just a joke." She snorted, took the cigarette from my fingertips, and there was nothing but disdain in her eyes and brows. "Can't stand it. If you can't stand it, you can break up." She had said such things to me countless times before. She knew I couldn't bear to leave her, so over time, she also learned how to handle me. She knew that when she said this, I would be at a loss. I turned my head and said, "I'm tired. I'm going to rest first." Sophia frowned, reached out and grabbed my sleeve, and pursed her lips. "James, don't push me." I opened her hand and went back to the room. Not long after, a loud door slamming sound came from outside. Sophia left. She was angry. I knew that because I had always been the one to coax her, and I had never shown her such a cold face like this. I turned over, opened my phone, and saw a WeChat message from my mom in the family group. "Mom has never urged you before, but you're 27 years old this year. How can you start a career without getting married? You should probably think about getting married. My colleague's daughter has a good condition, and I think she looks nice. Why don't you come back and meet her during this vacation?" Then I opened the WeChat message from my boss. He said, "James, the branch company is in urgent need of people right now. With your ability, being a deputy department manager is actually an underutilization of your talent. Are you interested in being a manager at the branch company? It will definitely be more difficult to develop the business at the beginning. You decide for yourself." My mom asked me to go back for a blind date, and the company had just opened a branch in my hometown city. Everything seemed to be in place. It seemed that I really had no reason to stay here. I sighed. In fact, I really liked Sophia. She was beautiful, had a good figure, and we were very compatible in bed. Most importantly, she was unfaithful, and being with her was easy because I didn't have to think about being responsible for her or consider our future. When I first started working, I was so busy and tired that I really wanted to find someone to relieve the pressure. But I was just an ordinary-looking guy, and I couldn't find anyone who suited me. Until I met Sophia. She spent the best years of her life with me. When I was exhausted from my career, she relieved a lot of my pressure physically. And although her relationship with the opposite sex was ambiguous, she was quite careful in this regard. Before being with her, I heard that any man she dated had to show a physical examination certificate within 3 days. I also took precautions, so I wasn't afraid of getting sick. It would probably be difficult to find such a satisfying woman again in the future. But there was no way. Dating was one thing, and getting married and settling down was another. I liked Sophia, but I also knew clearly that she wasn't the right person to marry. Now, it was time for me to make a decision. Sophia didn't come back all night, and she didn't show up in front of me for the next few days. She didn't answer the messages or calls I sent her. Then, when I sent more messages, there was only a red exclamation mark. She blocked me. There had been several times like this before. Sophia was good at the Cold War. Every time, I had to humble myself and coax her for a long time before she would give me a good look. But this time, I was busy with work handover and didn't have time to coax her. One night, I was buying a plane ticket back to my hometown when my phone suddenly rang. It was a call from one of Sophia's friends. It was very noisy on the other end of the phone, with men and women laughing and making noise, and the music was so loud that it made me feel noisy even through the phone. The person on the other end said, "James, Sophia is drunk. Come and pick her up." Sophia liked to go to nightclubs and bars. Her family was rich, and the band was her hobby, not a way to make money. But she almost never went home during holidays. When I asked her why, she said there were too many rules at home, and she preferred this unrestrained life. Anyway, her grandfather doted on her and would transfer money to her regularly. She wanted to spend more time doing what she liked, so Sophia had no sense of career. We had no common topics in this regard. Every time I won a project or got promoted in the company and told her, she always showed no interest. Sophia once said disdainfully that it was meaningless to work so hard for a little money every month, not even enough to buy her a bag. I knew that we were not the same kind of people at all. Except for being physically compatible, we had no common topics. I didn't care about her soul, I just liked her body. She ignored my heart and was just used to my tolerance. It was also good. In this way, when we separated, neither of us would be sad. I thought for a while and said okay. After hanging up the phone, I looked out the window. The city at night seemed more glorious than during the day. The lights of thousands of houses and the traffic, all kinds of lights intertwined, covering up the light of all the stars in the sky. I looked at the plane ticket. It was at 8 a.m. the day after tomorrow. I sighed. In fact, I didn't want to break up so soon. Sophia and I were really compatible in bed. These days, with the pressure of changing companies, I originally wanted to have sex with her one more time before breaking up. I smacked my lips, feeling a bit regretful. But since the opportunity came, there was nothing I could do. When I arrived at the bar, Sophia was drinking with the band members in high spirits. There were all kinds of men and women, and their common feature was that they were all dressed in an avant-garde, trendy and fashionable way. No wonder Sophia liked to be with them. I looked down at the cheap clothes I was wearing and remembered Sophia's words of disgust. "You're only 27, don't be a miser and just save money every day. Look at the clothes you wear, they have no taste at all, so old-fashioned. It's really boring to live like this. Go out and see the world, try new things. Look at the handsome guys in our band, which one doesn't have a tattoo? I asked you to get my name tattooed, and it was like taking your life. Usually, don't get too close to me outside. I'm embarrassed to say you're my boyfriend." My thoughts came back. I didn't say anything. Standing outside the crowd, my eyes met Sophia's, but she seemed not to see me and quickly looked away. The next second, she blushed and leaned close to David, her voice sticky. "Bad little brother, have another drink." David seemed more reserved and smiled a bit awkwardly. Then, Sophia raised her eyebrows, looking extremely beautiful, but without a trace of warmth. She said, "This is so boring. How about, little brother, you feed me, okay?" David asked, "How?" Sophia didn't speak, just looked up at him. Half a second later, David understood. A flash of surprise crossed his eyes. He raised his head and drank the caramel-colored whiskey in the glass in one gulp. Then he hooked Sophia's chin and kissed her hard. The two of them kissed passionately, as if venting their desires. Sophia raised her head to endure, and her eyes gradually became moist due to lack of oxygen. The wine overflowed from the corners of their mouths, emitting a blurred color under the lights. It was not until they separated after a long time that a long silver thread was pulled out. The atmosphere around suddenly exploded. Everyone was screaming and cheering. I knew Sophia was doing it on purpose. She wanted to punish me for showing her a cold face that day and not coaxing her in time afterwards. It was not until I walked up to Sophia that everyone saw me and gradually quieted down. Sophia looked up and asked indifferently, "What are you doing here?" Looking at this face, I vaguely remembered the days when we were affectionate. When we were in love, we also said we loved each other. Did I feel sad? Maybe a little, but not too much. After all, I had long known that Sophia was such a person, fickle, constantly seeking excitement, selfish. Probably because she had been spoiled since she was a child, she always put herself first and didn't consider others' feelings. I said word by word, "Sophia, you've gone too far." Sophia looked up at me. Clearly, she was sitting and I was standing, but I felt as if she was looking down on me. She still had that indifferent expression, with a disdainful smile. "Gone too far. If it's too far, you can break up. No one is stopping you." I didn't say a word, just looked at her. I couldn't count how many times she had threatened me with breaking up. 50 times. Or 100 times. A friend next to her also thought she had gone too far. After all, everyone had seen how I treated her over the years. The friend whispered to her, "Sophia, don't say that. James is so good to you. What you said really hurts James." In fact, I was really sad. My eyes were moist, and I closed my eyes in pain. After all, if I was acting, I had to act the whole way. After much effort, when that tear fell to the ground, I clearly saw Sophia's expression change. Her fingers holding the wine glass moved, but she still didn't speak, just looked at me coldly. The next second, I said softly, "Okay, Sophia, let's break up." Sophia's face instantly became extremely ugly, like a volcano on the verge of eruption. However, she suddenly laughed, but that smile seemed to be gritted teeth. She said, "Okay, James, you've got guts, right? Fine, but I never go back on my word. Don't come crawling back to me like a hound later." "Okay." I nodded painfully, then turned around and left without looking back at her. That night, Sophia didn't come back. I deleted Sophia's contact information and everything related to her overnight and packed my luggage. Early the next morning, I took the earliest flight back to my hometown. When the plane flew over the clouds, I pulled out the phone card and threw it into the garbage bag. I didn't contact Sophia anymore. I posted some late-night emo posts on Moments to create a heartbroken persona, and then simply forgot about her. My life back in my hometown went on as usual. I quickly adapted to the business of the new company and also met the woman arranged by my parents. The girl across from me, who was only 25, had makeup on her face that looked like she had plastered putty on it. As soon as she sat down, she started chattering non-stop. She said, "I think the most important thing for a man is to earn money to support the family. My ex-boyfriend said that a man should spend money on his woman when he earns it. After getting married, the salary card must be handed over. After all, men will go bad when they have money." My ex-boyfriend said that he was willing to give an 880,000 yuan betrothal gift to marry me and add my name to the house. After all, as a girl, when I marry into his family, I always need a little guarantee. My ex-boyfriend also said that men who talk about gender equality are chauvinists because reality is unequal. Women have to give birth to children, and men can't do it for them. As I listened to her rambling on, I smiled and held the coffee cup in my hand, thinking that I must hold back and not argue with such a woman. So I nodded and asked, "Then why didn't you marry your ex-boyfriend?" She was speechless and stammered, "Because my ex-boyfriend said that our personalities weren't quite suitable." I maintained my smile and said, "Ms. Emily, I think what your ex-boyfriend said is wrong. After getting married, not only should the salary card be handed over, but the beneficiary of the insurance purchase should also be the girl's name. I think if I'm willing to marry someone, I should give as much betrothal gift as I can afford, and write the house in the woman's name directly. I wonder if Ms. Emily is satisfied." Her eyes sparkled as she asked, "Really, Mr. James?" I stood up, sighed, and said, "Unfortunately, Ms. Emily, I think our personalities may not be very suitable, and we'd better not have any more contact." After saying that, I turned and left. I had been back in my hometown for so many days, and my mother had introduced me to quite a few blind date partners. In fact, some of them had good conditions. However, once I had experienced a failed relationship, I was not interested in anyone. This state continued until a work meeting. Everyone came early and sat around the conference table in silence. The atmosphere was serious. I quietly asked the deputy general manager next to me, "What's going on? Is there something wrong with the company?" The deputy general manager leaned close to my ear and said, "The old chairman's daughter is here. I heard she's here to get some hands-on experience in the company. If she can pass the test, she will take over the entire group over her brother in the future. Also, don't underestimate women. This girl is decisive and tough in her work. She graduated from Harvard and started working in the financial industry on her own after graduation. She earned $3 million overnight. Be careful. Women like her are not to be trifled with. Be very careful when talking to her." After a while, a woman in a black strapless mermaid dress walked into the office. The dress clung to her body curves, highlighting her shapely figure. She casually draped a black women's suit over her shoulders. The moment she entered the office, someone behind her took her coat. The crisp sound of her high heels on the ground suddenly stopped. I looked up. Not only me, but in an instant, everyone's eyes were attracted to her. When I first saw her, it felt as if the air in the entire room had stagnated with her figure. Her eyes swept across every corner, and when her fingers the desktop, the air started flowing again, carrying an elegant and captivating aura. When I looked closely again, I could clearly see her pair of clear crescent-shaped eyes. Her long black hair was neatly coiled up, revealing her slender neck, and a few strands of hair fell down by her ears. This person was extremely beautiful, comparable to Sophia, but her aura was so strong that it was hard to notice her appearance at first glance. She said, "Sorry, the plane was late, and I'm late." She first frankly admitted her mistake, then sat at the head of the table and said straightforwardly, "My name is Olivia. From now on, I'm the general manager of the company. I've already read the company's basic information and financial statements. Now, starting from the deputy general manager, everyone please give me a basic report on your work achievements in the past year and the work you're currently handling." The person in charge stood up one by one and reported nervously. Olivia was indeed an elite as rumored. She precisely pointed out every place where someone tried to fool her and said, "I don't like this kind of vague talk, and I don't like being fooled. I hope to communicate well with everyone, but if communication doesn't work, I'll consider other methods." Although Olivia didn't scold or hit anyone, everyone couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat on their backs. Even when I stood up, my palms were slightly moist. Fortunately, I was well prepared, and my work achievements in the previous year were quite outstanding. As I talked, I became more and more eloquent. My education and career are my pride and an important part of my life. I never give myself a pass in this regard. Olivia didn't interrupt me. I saw a hint of appreciation in her eyes. After a while, I stopped and indicated that the report was over. She nodded and said, "James, right. Good. Future work reports should be in this standard." Since Olivia came, everyone's work gradually became busier. She cleared up a lot of redundant affairs and bad assets and negotiated many high-quality projects. Everyone's overtime hours increased, but their salaries also increased accordingly. The male colleagues were very interested in Olivia, the domineering female president. Somehow, two old hands, perhaps having read too many online novels and short dramas about female bosses, one of them mistakenly called the boss wife in front of everyone in the morning and said that if there was a fine, he would get an annual card. The other one directly gave Olivia a strong wall thump in the office in the afternoon. The former was fired in the morning, and the latter was sent to the police station that day. The colleagues became obedient after that. During the lunch break, you could still hear everyone talking about Olivia. "Don't look at her like this. I heard she's never even had a boyfriend. How is that possible? Have you watched too many TV dramas? With Olivia's looks and figure, you're kidding. If you believe Olivia is single, you might as well believe I'm God." I listened on the side and suddenly became interested. After that, I started to appear in front of Olivia regularly. She comes to work half an hour early every day, so I can take the same elevator as her 3 days out of 5. Usually, there are only the two of us in the elevator at that time. I don't talk much, just say hello, press the elevator button for her, and then stand quietly aside. Then, I go to get a cup of coffee at noon every day without fail. She usually comes at that time too. I always make sure not to meet her in the pantry and leave before she comes, but still let her see me. Occasionally, I work overtime, and she passes by my workstation when she gets off work. When she saw me working overtime for the 17th time, she stopped, walked towards me, and asked, "I've seen you working overtime a lot recently. Is there a problem?" I pretended to be surprised and looked up. After hesitating for a moment, I still handed her the materials in my hand and said, "I recently took over a new project, but there are some assets of this company, and I'm not sure about their risks, so I need to study them more." Olivia naturally sat down next to me and said softly, "Let me take a look." She exuded a faint rose fragrance, giving a slightly intoxicating feeling. After she looked at it, she nodded and said, "I think this project is feasible. Look, the company's 2023 financial statements show that its financial situation is quite good. And..." Olivia explained seriously, and I nodded seriously, occasionally asking some highly professional questions. Looking at her pensive side face, I slightly raised the corners of my mouth. Later, Olivia pointed at the little orange cat in my hand and asked curiously, "What's this?" I pinched it and handed it to her, saying, "This is a stress-relieving toy. Usually, when I'm under a lot of pressure and can't figure things out, I pinch it. It's very stress-relieving. Ms. Olivia, do you want to try?" Olivia gently took it and carefully pinched it twice. Her crescent-shaped eyes immediately sparkled. But the next moment, she seemed to realize something, quickly put away her naive expression, and handed the orange cat back to me, saying, "Get off work early. Otherwise, others might think I'm a boss who always forces employees to work overtime." I nodded, put away the materials, and went downstairs with her. When we went out, raindrops were blown towards Olivia by the wind. She hesitated and took a step back. I opened my umbrella and turned around to ask, "Ms. Olivia, didn't you bring an umbrella?" "I'll walk you there. The company parking lot is across the road, and you have to go across the overpass to drive." Olivia nodded a little shyly and followed me into the umbrella, always keeping a short distance from me. I unhesitatingly tilted the umbrella towards her side. Rainwater slid down the edge of the umbrella and wet my shoulder. Olivia obviously noticed my action, looked up at my wet sleeve, and a hint of imperceptible entanglement appeared on her face. The next second, she pursed her lips and approached me, her shoulder gently touching my arm. The rain slapped on the ground, and we got closer. The warm body temperature faintly came through the clothes, and the air was filled with her rose fragrance. When Olivia drove the car out of the parking lot, I hadn't walked far. She rolled down the window and asked, "Didn't you drive?" I smiled awkwardly and said, "Yeah, I forgot to drive today." "It's okay, Ms. Olivia. I'll just take a taxi back later." She said, "How about I give you a ride?" Along the way, Olivia and I talked a lot. She was surprised to find that our interests were so consistent. Even the niche movie The Holy Mountain that I like is also her favorite. Olivia gradually became more lively from her initial coldness. When we arrived at my door, she didn't step on the brakes and drove right past. I was about to remind her when she noticed it herself and quickly said, "Sorry, I didn't look at the navigation just now." After the car stopped, I thanked her again for sending me home. Olivia just nodded, her lips moved slightly, as if she wanted to say something but swallowed it back. "What's wrong, Ms. Olivia?" I asked. Then she asked, "Where did you buy that orange cat's dress, relieving toy? It's so cute." As soon as she said this, Olivia seemed to regret it, as if the image of the cold and glamorous female president was about to collapse, so she simply lowered her head and didn't speak. I smiled. The next second, I took out the big orange from my pocket, stuffed it into her hand, and waved my hand, saying, "Ms. Olivia, see you tomorrow then." I stood behind the curtain, watched Olivia leave, and then picked up a notebook from the table. In order to create such opportunities, I hadn't driven to work for a long time. Fortunately, the weather forecast was accurate today, and I really encountered this rain. I opened the notebook, which was full of records of Olivia's preferences. There wasn't much information about her. I finally found her student social account and carefully recorded every word, so that I could understand some of her preferences. For example, she really loves chubby big oranges and that movie The Holy Mountain. I specifically watched it last night. There was no way for an ordinary man like me to win over such an excellent woman. I really had to spend more thought. I had just sat on the bed and wanted to rest when my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. After answering, I heard a familiar voice. Sophia said in a cold tone, "You left a lot of things at home. Come and get them, or I'll throw them away." I did leave some things when I left, but they were all things that took up space and I didn't need. I thought Sophia would just throw them away according to her character, but I didn't expect her to call and notify me. So I said, "Then throw them all away. I don't want them." As I said this, I was flipping through the notebook about Olivia, and my tone was a bit perfunctory. Sophia on the other end of the phone was obviously unhappy. After a long silence, she hung up the phone directly. Sophia had always been like this, moody and always needing to be coaxed. But now, I no longer had the obligation to coax her. After blocking this number, I put this matter out of my mind. I had already spent time with Olivia yesterday, so I couldn't use the same method today. Rarely getting off work early, I went to a bar to drink with a friend. After a few drinks, both of us were a little tipsy. My friend squinted his eyes and asked me, "You used to like Sophia so much. Now that you've suddenly broken up, can you really let it go?" When I was with Sophia, my friends always felt that I was spineless and too much of a simp. But I didn't think it was a big deal. Since I was attracted to Sophia's body, I had to pay something. Besides, whether I'm a simp or not is up to me. How can it be considered spineless? I put down my glass and said, "A person like her is only suitable for dating. I'm not stupid. It's okay to have some fun when I'm young, but if I really get married, it will be a lifetime of trouble." My friend gave me a thumbs up and said, "Awesome. You really have a high level of thinking. You're right. You've enjoyed the best years of Sophia, the ultimate beauty. It turns out you're the one who's been hiding your strength." The next second, he suddenly stopped talking and looked at me in horror, asking, "Am I drunk and having hallucinations?" A cold laugh came from behind me, instantly sobering me up. The person said, "James, is this the reason why you dumped me?" I stiffly turned my head and saw Sophia standing behind me in a silk white shirt, looking at me coldly. My friend slipped away without loyalty. Sophia pulled me to an empty corridor and looked at me angrily. I even suspected that she would hit me the next second. I took the initiative and said, "Why are you here? Don't tell me you came here specifically to find me." Sophia gritted her teeth and said, "James, don't you have a mirror at home?" Don't you even have urine? I came here with the band to perform. If I hadn't happened to meet you, I wouldn't have known that I had been played by you for so many years. I quickly explained, I was just joking with my friend. You know, you hurt me so deeply, and I also need to save face. I turned my head away and didn't look at Sophia, but she grabbed my ear and forcefully turned my head back, shouting, James, have you always been treating me like a fool? Yes, I responded silently in my heart. I forcefully broke free from her hand, rubbed my sore ear, and tried to say calmly, Sophia, no matter what, I've been dedicated to you in these years. You should have a clear conscience. I haven't done anything to you. On the contrary, it's you who have always been me. Even if I really played with you, doesn't my youth count? Since we've come to this point, let's part ways amicably. At least. I paused, unable to say the word love after all, and then continued, at least we've been together for a while. Sophia stared at me for a long time. Just when I thought she was going to get angry again, she suddenly laughed. Under the light, her eyebrows and eyes were still beautiful, but I was no longer attracted. No matter how beautiful a person is, after seeing them for more than 1,000 days and nights, I've had enough. Sophia said, James, you think too highly of yourself. Sophia raised the corner of her mouth proudly and said, of course we should part ways amicably. Do you think I'll still pester you? Remember, it's not you who dumped me, but I who dumped you. After saying that, she turned and left, as if there was something dirty behind her. I looked at her back and sighed silently. Sophia had indeed never been dumped in her life. Being dumped by me probably made her very unwilling. However, if she could feel better thinking this way, I didn't care. After that, I still maintained my previous overtime frequency, and Olivia also left work later and later. We occasionally took the same car. In late autumn and early winter, the weather was dry and cold. Among the traffic and lights, pedestrians wrapped in coats. The cold seemed to make the distance between people a little farther, but it also made people involuntarily want to get closer. We would talk about company projects and our recent situations. I would complain about people and things in the company I worked with, and she would agree angrily, yeah, I also think that person is too disgusting. Then we would laugh together. As time passed, I could feel that Olivia's affection for me was gradually increasing. On the day of the first snowfall, I decided to take a bold move. I asked Olivia for leave. When she asked for the reason, I hesitated and replied, there's something at home. Normally, she shouldn't have asked further at this point, but Olivia frowned and said, did something happen to a family member? Is there anything I can do to help? I smiled awkwardly and said, no, it's my mom forcing me to go on a blind date at home. Olivia was stunned. I rarely saw such an expression on her face. I added, I'm 27 years old, and my family has been urging me very hard. I've pushed it off before, but this time I really can't. After a while, Olivia lowered her head and said, all right, but you know the company's been busy lately. I can only approve. She pretended to check her phone. 2 hours. I think that's enough time for a blind date. Okay, now there's 1 hour and 59 minutes left. I wasn't lying to Olivia. I really was going on a blind date. I hadn't had any progress with blind dates recently, and my mom was almost going crazy. This time, the blind date partner had good conditions. She had returned from studying abroad, worked in a foreign-owned enterprise, had a well-proportioned figure, and an elegant temperament. She not only had her own ideas but also knew how to respect others' opinions and didn't have those princess disease remarks. I got interested and couldn't help chatting a bit more. When the blind date partner went to the restroom, I was looking down at my phone. I felt someone sit down. Just as I was about to speak, I was stunned. It was Sophia sitting in front of me. She crossed her legs and stared at me with disdain. You broke up with me just to come back and go on a blind date with someone like this. The smile on my lips disappeared. Didn't you say you came here to perform with the band? Why haven't you left yet? Sophia replied, the band's schedule changed. Do you think I want to stay in this lousy place? I said seriously, I hope you can respect my blind date partner. She's a nice person. Please leave and don't disrupt my blind date. The smile on Sophia's face faded, and she tightly pursed her lips. When the blind date partner came back and saw this scene, she looked blank. Excuse me, who are you? Sophia didn't even look at her and said angrily, I'm his girlfriend. Be sensible and scram. I quickly explained, no, she's not. However, Sophia came closer and tightly wrapped her arm around mine. What, do we have to kiss right here for you to believe? By the time I pushed Sophia away, the blind date partner had left with a face full of anger. I was furious. Sophia, are you crazy? We've already broken up. Sophia, however, casually leaned on the sofa. Her delicate face looked extremely annoying. She said, "That was you unilaterally." I didn't agree. I retorted, "Dating isn't like getting married. Does it need both parties' consent? And you clearly agreed before. You also said you'd never go back to an ex." I changed my mind. Sophia said it nonchalantly, as if she were talking about what to eat today, without any sense of burden. "I think you're good at taking care of people. I feel comfortable with you, and I don't want to break up anymore." When people are extremely speechless, they really do laugh. I twitched the corners of my mouth. "But I'm not comfortable." Sophia countered, "You've wasted my best years. What are you uncomfortable about?" She raised her voice, drawing the attention of people around. I quickly covered her mouth. "Shut up." Sophia, though, shook her head desperately, broke free from my hand, and continued shouting, "You haven't met any good women since we broke up, have you? James, you know in your heart that I'm the best you can get. And we're also very compatible in bed. Instead of being with those people, why don't we?" Sophia's words suddenly stopped because a black figure appeared in front of me. I came to my senses. Olivia was still wearing the black mermaid dress from the company, her brows furrowed. "James, didn't you say you were coming for a blind date? Why are you talking about having sex?" I was completely stunned. I had planned to make Olivia jealous, but she didn't come earlier, and Sophia suddenly showed up. Then, when Sophia was making a scene out of nowhere, Olivia appeared. Sophia stood up unhappily and stared at Olivia. "I'm his girlfriend. Who are you? Mind your own business here." Olivia said calmly, "I'm James's boss. As far as I know, James doesn't have a girlfriend." Sophia bit her lip and said, "Does he need to report to you whether he has a girlfriend or not? No wonder he broke up with me so straightforwardly. He has his eyes on you. James, does she know what a despicable person you are? Are you going to use the same tricks on her as you did on me?" Even though I'm usually emotionally stable, I was really angry at this moment. Just as I was about to retort, Olivia spoke first. "So you're the dumped ex-girlfriend. Since James dumped you, it means he doesn't like you. Pestering him won't work." Sophia's face turned red, and Olivia said to me, "The leave I approved for you is over. There's a meeting waiting for you at the company. Let's go." I didn't care about anything else. I said to Sophia word by word, "I don't know what crazy idea you've got, but Sophia, in these years together, I don't owe you anything. We got together out of mutual consent. I never forced you. I still say, I hope we can part ways amicably. Don't bother me anymore in the future." Sophia seemed to want to say something, but after hearing my words, the look in her eyes dimmed, and she finally said nothing. Olivia pulled my sleeve and led me out. In the car, Olivia asked indignantly, "Is that really your ex-girlfriend?" I changed the subject. "Didn't you say we're going back to the company for a meeting?" Olivia repeated, "Is that person your ex-girlfriend?" I rubbed my face and said with a bitter smile, "Yes, we were together for 3 years. I used to like her a lot, but she kept cheating on me. I just couldn't stand it anymore. The reason I went back to my hometown this time was also because of the breakup with her. I was deeply hurt. These days being with you, I secretly glanced at Olivia's expression and pretended to be down. I was feeling much better, but then she came back to pester me." Olivia looked at me and said seriously, "A woman like her really doesn't deserve you. Don't be soft-hearted. Cheating is either 0 times or countless times. Her disloyalty to you shows that she doesn't love you enough. You should find someone who loves you wholeheartedly." I couldn't help but raise the corners of my mouth, then force them down. With a sad look, I said, "But there are so few women like you. Where can I find one?" Olivia's ears gradually turned red, and she said softly, "Well, only I'm worthy of you." 3 days later, when I was drinking in a bar, Olivia sent me a message asking when I would go back to work. After she said that day, I was really taken aback. But I wasn't too hasty. I was serious about Olivia, so we couldn't get together casually, like I did with Sophia, starting and ending things in a muddle. Just right, using this as an excuse, I took my annual leave and went out to have fun with friends to relax. This bar is quite high-end and unique in the city. It's not too noisy, and the songs the band plays are very nice. I was enjoying the figures of handsome men and beautiful women on the dance floor while drinking with my friend. Until the music stopped at some point. After a while, the bass sound started. "How long will I love you? As long as the stars still shine above your head. If I can, I'll love you even longer. How long will I need you? As long as the 4 seasons take time to rotate, I'll need you." A soft and gentle voice came. I stopped my drinking action and opened my eyes wide, looking at the stage. Sophia, wearing a tight-fitting leather dress, was standing on the stage. The silver necklace around her neck was shining brightly. In an instant, the noisy crowd and the blurred lights seemed to disappear. I could only see the faint light in her eyes when she looked at me. Everything was like the scene when we first met, except this time, I wasn't walking towards her. Sophia slowly walked down from the stage and said to me, "Add me on WeChat." The whole place erupted in noise, but I shook my head inside. Why bother? It's not that I underestimate myself. I can see that Sophia really likes me, but how much of her liking is based on who I am? Or is it just because when we were together, I took care of her, coaxed her, and tolerated her meticulously? I think maybe everything she's doing now is because in her subconscious, I've always been a simp, and she has a firm grip on our relationship. Now that she's actually been dumped by me, a simp, she's just not willing to accept it. The crowd gradually dispersed, and the music continued. Sophia sat down next to me in a flattering way and nudged me. "I thought about what you said the other day. It's really like that. In these years we've been together, you've never done anything to let me down. You've given a lot to me, but I've been hurting you. I deserve it if you abandon me." Sophia's expression was a bit conflicted. She seemed to have something she didn't want to say but had to. With a nervous and unskilled tone, she said, "Well, if I change from now on, I'll treat you well, care about you, and never do anything out of line with others again. Can you?" As if remembering what she said about never going back to an ex, Sophia blushed deeply, lowered her head, and said quickly, "Can you get back together with me?" "I'm sorry. I was wrong before." I looked at Sophia in surprise, thinking she was possessed by something. Sophia, who was always so haughty, actually apologized and took the initiative to ask me to get back together. I knew in my heart that this was definitely not her usual style. There must be someone giving her advice behind the scenes. I asked, "Who gave you this idea?" Sophia pursed her lips and said, "My sisters. After we broke up, they all said I was too excessive before and that I deserved to chase my ex-boyfriend in desperation." At this point, Sophia's sense of shame seemed to have reached its limit. She asked again, "So do you want to get back together with me? I have much better conditions than your blind date partners. After dating me, you'll find them unpleasant to look at, right? And that female boss of yours the other day, she seems boring. She can only talk about work with you every day. We've been getting along for 3 years. We're the most suitable." I stood up, drained the wine in my glass, and said, "No, thank you for your kindness. The song is nice, but as for getting back together, forget it." The air seemed to freeze. Sophia pursed her lips and looked at me expressionlessly. Why? Sophia has a pair of beautiful almond-shaped eyes. Even when she's unhappy, her eyes are always full of tenderness. It's rare to see her look so cold. I smiled. Because I never go back to an ex. After that, I volunteered to take on a business trip for a week. When the project was almost done and we had dinner together in the evening, the look in the eyes of a senior in the other company made me very uncomfortable. "James, how old are you this year?" A middle-aged man with a bald head asked me in a very paternalistic way. I suppressed my annoyance and said, "Please don't take offense. I'm 27 this year, and I don't have much social experience yet." He said, "At your age, why don't you drink the wine toasted by an elder?" He frowned and handed me a glass of wine. I've met quite a few people like this before. As long as you don't drink the wine they toast as they ask, they think you're ignorant and impolite, and they'll find ways to criticize and teach you, as if this can satisfy their eagerness to show off their knowledge. I used to work hard on business entertainment and overtime for my career, and finally got a gastric perforation. The doctor forbade me to drink alcohol anymore. So, although I was annoyed, this cooperation project was quite big, and I knew this was a crucial moment for Olivia to take over the company. I could only endure the stomachache and deal with it. However, once I started drinking, I couldn't stop. He toasted me one glass after another, and I gritted my teeth and drank one glass after another. The burning sensation stimulated my nerves, and my palms were sweating. Just then, my phone rang. It was Olivia calling. She said, "Why is it so noisy? Are you still having dinner? I sent a message to your leader. If you're full, leave quickly. You can't drink, you hear me." I didn't want to stay any longer either, but unexpectedly, this guy had a bad drinking behavior. After drinking a few bottles of wine, he started to act drunk and insisted on talking to me. "It's good that you're capable, young man, but you also need to know how to handle things. If you don't drink enough, the business won't be done. Don't be so coy. Have another glass." He handed me another glass of wine. I held my breath because of the stench of alcohol and pushed the glass back. "Mr. Mark, my stomach isn't feeling well. I probably can't drink today. You can drink with my colleagues first." Unexpectedly, he flew into a rage, yanked me up, and cursed, "What are you showing off for as a department manager? The contract has been signed for you. I ask you to drink a few glasses of wine, and you're being so evasive. Do you think my position isn't high enough? You son of a bitch, how dare you look down on me?" As he spoke, he actually grabbed my collar and picked up the whole bottle of wine to pour it down my throat. I was very weak from the stomachache. Fortunately, several colleagues beside me came up and pulled him away, pinning him to the seat. My heart was pounding. Looking at him sitting in the chair in front of me, shouting non-stop, the double stimulation of psychology and physiology made me feel nauseous. Finally, I couldn't hold it in anymore. The food that had just gone through my stomach gushed out like a river, like a strong wind scattering wisps of cloud, all over the person in front of me. The sound was like a zombie coming back to life. Mr. Mark, with vegetable leaves on his head, was instantly stunned and sobered up. The colleagues were also stunned and stepped back one after another. The deputy general manager was frantically gesturing to me. I then looked down and saw that the phone was still not hung up. Oh no, this scene of hippo vomiting was probably heard by Olivia. I was speechless. I forced myself to walk out the door and nervously picked up the phone, but I only heard endless silence. Olivia seemed to be gone and didn't respond at all. I was vomiting and having diarrhea in the hotel, spinning around. In the end, I could only vomit out some bitter gastric juice and yellow-green bile, and collapsed weakly on the bed. I thought Olivia would at least call to ask about me, but she didn't. Maybe she was angry and blaming me for offending such a big client. I wanted to sleep, but I couldn't. In the dark, I didn't turn on the light and stared at the ceiling with my eyes open. Actually, it's nothing. I'm used to this kind of thing. My family couldn't help me. When I was in college, I took out student loans, and I earned my living expenses by working part-time day and night. At that time, I delivered food and ran errands. I had to endure all kinds of strange customers. Even so, I still couldn't earn much money. Now it's actually much better. At least I've really earned some money. As time passed, Olivia didn't send any more messages. I turned over and smiled bitterly. What else was there not to understand? With such a big thing happening, she was probably furious and might be promising the other party to fire me. Only those who like to be simps deceive themselves. If at this point, I still lie to myself that Olivia really cares about me, that would be really stupid. I suddenly thought of my mother. Since I was born, I rarely saw my father. It seems that all human weaknesses are reflected in him. He was a gambler, never at home, constantly looking for women, and occasionally came back to ask for money. Whenever my mother didn't give him money, he would beat my mother and me. Since I was sensible, I had been persuading my mother to divorce. Everyone around also advised her to divorce, but she would always sob and say that she wanted to give me a complete family and refused to divorce. At first, I didn't understand. Clearly, my father treated us like this, so why did my mother think a complete family would be better for me? Later, I realized that it was actually she who didn't want a divorce and used me as an excuse. Every time my father was found with another woman, she would throw tantrums, cry, and threaten to die with my father with a kitchen knife and a rope. But when my father really wanted to leave, she became cowardly, crying and kneeling on the ground, holding my father's leg to stop him. This woman had become a victim of Stockholm Syndrome and the endless torture. She hated my father but couldn't leave him. I grew up in this endless tug of war day after day. So since I was a child, I knew that one has to rely on oneself, strive by any means, and take control of one's own destiny. It's the same with my career and my relationships. I won't get back together with Sophia because her nature is hard to change. Even if she talks nicely now, she won't really change her ways. Simps end up with nothing. I won't repeat my mother's tragedy. As for Olivia, do I really like her? I don't even know myself. Maybe I just like that she's beautiful and much more innocent than Sophia. I tried every means to get her, but I know this kind of feeling was false at the beginning. I rarely felt confused. Is this really what I want? The next second, the doorbell rang. I stumbled out of bed to open the door. Olivia at the door had obviously come after a few hours of night driving. Olivia's face was deathly pale and haggard. But the moment she saw me, all her emotions seemed to burst out instantly. The worry in her eyes was immediately replaced by anger. Olivia tightly grasped the hem of her skirt, biting her lip and saying, "You clearly can't drink. Why are you being so stubborn? You drank so much. Do you still care about your life? Do you know that just now I thought?" I interrupted, "But this business deal is very important to you. I didn't want to let you down at a crucial moment." Olivia looked at me with red eyes and said, "What about you? Aren't you important to me? If the cost is you, then what's the point of all this? Her voice trembled slightly due to the intense emotional upheaval. Perhaps realizing she had said something wrong, after saying this, Olivia sniffled, trying hard to calm her tone, and in a daze, she regained her usual cold and distant tone. She said, "I've made it clear to that company. This cooperation is cancelled, and he'll never find another job in this circle again." Olivia lowered her head and stopped looking at me, continuing on her own, "I've cancelled tomorrow's event. You have a good sleep. I'll be staying in the room next to yours. If you need anything, you can come to me anytime." With that, Olivia was about to leave, as if she had traveled all the way here just to say these words to me. If I wasn't proactive at this point, I'd be too obtuse. So the moment Olivia turned around, I reached out and grabbed her, put my arm around her shoulders, and lowered my head to plant a slightly cool kiss amidst the faint scent of roses. I smiled at Olivia's blushing expression and asked, "Olivia, can you be my girlfriend?" The feeling of being with Olivia was completely different from being with Sophia. She wasn't a clingy girlfriend, yet when I was in trouble, she would stay by my side, and no amount of persuasion could make her leave. She wouldn't say she missed me, but no matter how late I came back, I would always find her waiting for me. The longer we were together, the more I could sense that beneath Olivia's icy exterior was a hidden charm. I experienced an unprecedented sense of happiness, yet I was also extremely anxious, like walking on a cliff. Clearly, there was solid ground beneath my feet, but when I turned around, it became an abyss. I was afraid that Olivia would discover my true self, that everything I did for her was just deliberate flattery and careful pretense, and I was worried that she would loathe the real me. After several snowfalls, the temperature dropped sharply. Coupled with my sense of guilt, as I wanted to make more efforts to compensate Olivia, I worked overtime and eventually fell ill. After asking for leave from my boss, I stayed at home alone. I didn't live with Olivia because I thought distance could make those false things seem real. When I was in a feverish daze, I seemed to hear the doorbell ring. I thought I was dreaming. It wasn't until the doorbell rang several more times that I forced my eyes open. When I went to open the door, I found that it was Olivia outside. She was carrying a thermos box in her left hand and a bag of medicine in her right. It seemed to be snowing outside. There were still unmelted snowflakes on her black cashmere coat, and her long eyelashes would become moist and intertwined with a slight blink. Olivia said, "How could you do this? You didn't even tell me you were sick." She walked to the dining table and put down the lunchbox, saying, "I made some porridge. I don't know if you like it." Before I could react, she stood on tiptoe, leaned over, touched my forehead, then touched her own, slightly furrowed her brows, sat down on the sofa, took out each medicine, and said resentfully, "Why are you always like this? Always toughing it out and not taking medicine when you're sick. Is it a cold or a viral infection?" I waved my hand and said, "It's nothing serious. Probably just a cold." Olivia took out a box of medicine and unfolded the instruction manual, looking at it carefully. I stared at her in a daze, remembering that when I first saw her, she was looking at a report I submitted with the same earnestness. Once, we were so far apart. She was noble and elegant, while I was just an ordinary employee. I sat the farthest from her, with so many people in between. But now, Olivia was sitting right in front of me, alive, frowning with worry as she looked at that small instruction manual. The orange light in the living room shone on Olivia. Her form-fitting knitted sweater clung to her graceful figure. The collar was slightly open, revealing her alluring collarbone, exuding an unintentional sexiness. The soft light reflected on Olivia's cold-looking makeup, adding a touch of tenderness to her. Suddenly, my heart skipped a beat, and the echo seemed to bounce around in my head. I thought, this is it. I walked over and hugged Olivia tightly. She hugged me back, then quickly grabbed the blanket beside her and draped it over me. She said, "Don't do this. You're still sick." But I hugged her even tighter and said in a muffled voice, "What should I do, Olivia? I seem to like you more and more." She snorted and said, "Didn't you like me before?" I was speechless. It was another tricky question. I said, "That's not what I meant." Olivia rubbed against me in my arms and burst out laughing, interrupting me, "Okay, no need to explain. Because I like you more and more too." I couldn't describe that feeling. I've always pursued rationality, and in my opinion, feelings should also be part of rationality. I don't like the feeling of losing control, but now, it didn't seem so bad. After taking the medicine, I fell into a deep sleep without dreams. When I woke up again, I was sweating all over, and my stuffy head suddenly felt much lighter. I got out of bed and immediately went to find Olivia to tell her I was better. Olivia! The next second, I stood at the door of the study and met Olivia's complex gaze. She was holding the notebook where I had recorded her information, and she had already flipped through half of it. Olivia left. She wasn't angry, nor did she quarrel with me. She didn't say anything and didn't look at me again. I chased her into the corridor, wanting to call out to her, but I didn't make a sound. I still felt a bit uncomfortable from the cold, but I didn't really notice it. I just felt cold in my heart, as if the cold wind of this winter had blown into my heart. 2 days later, I recovered and went back to work. I worked overtime as usual and went to the pantry to get coffee, but I never saw her again. It turned out that Olivia was deliberately avoiding me, and I really couldn't see her. The WeChat messages that used to ring all day long stopped. It seemed like she had completely forgotten about me. Sometimes I would try to find comfort in the situation, thinking that at least she didn't fire me. Other times, I couldn't help but grit my teeth, thinking that it would be better if she were a vengeful person and had a fit of anger at me. At least then there would be some kind of reaction. I didn't look for Olivia either. I had been caught red-handed, so what was there to say? Any explanation would be pale. I went back to my previous routine, going to work alone and coming home alone. I didn't feel anything before, but after getting used to being with someone and then suddenly being single again, it made me feel a bit lonely. Somehow, Sophia found out about my breakup and started chasing and blocking me. After being blocked by Sophia at my doorstep again, I couldn't help but sigh and say, "What on earth do you want? I've already said I won't get back together with you." Sophia leaned against the doorframe. Her silver earrings glistened with a metallic sheen under the light. She raised her eyebrows and said, "Well, you're single now anyway. You might as well give me another try. What's so great about Olivia? Look at my face, my legs, and all this. Why do you have to like her?" I was too lazy to talk much and said impatiently, "I just like Olivia." "What does it have to do with you?" Sophia laughed, and her voice was filled with cold derision. "You like Olivia, but does she like you?" Sophia leaned closer to me, biting her lip. "She only likes the way you pretend to be. But I'm different. I like you just the way you are. You two are not in the same league. Is a pretend relationship interesting?" That last sentence hit me hard. Yes, the relationship between Olivia and me started as a pretense, but my feelings for her were real. But Sophia was right. What was the use? Olivia wouldn't like me anymore. A girl like her, having been fooled by me like this, must be completely heartbroken. Sophia continued, "James, we're meant to be together." Sophia's voice was seductive, like a siren singing in the middle of the night, trying to tightly grasp the prey she had targeted and drag it into the water. Just as I was about to speak, my phone suddenly rang. I looked down and saw that it was a WeChat message from Olivia. It said, "Can we meet?" I looked up at Sophia and said, "No." Sophia was stunned for a moment and asked, "What?" I replied, "I said I won't get back together with you." I looked straight into her eyes and said word by word, "Sophia, I don't like you." After not seeing her for a few days, Olivia didn't seem to have changed. She didn't look haggard from a broken heart, nor was there any sign of anger from being deceived. The waiter took away her off-white woolen coat. She was wearing a black turtleneck sweater, her eyes downcast, and her hands gently folded. After a while, Olivia asked, "Have you used those tricks on others like you did on me?" I had thought she would first question me about why I lied to her. I didn't expect Olivia to ask this, and for a moment, I was a bit caught off guard. I replied, "No, I really haven't." Even with Sophia, I didn't go to such lengths to study her preferences. Olivia's expression didn't change, but her brows and eyes relaxed a little. I wanted to say that I didn't mean to deceive her, but when the words came to my lips, I thought about it and just couldn't say them. I could only lower my voice and say, "I lied to you, and I'm really sorry. You should be angry with me. If you don't want to see me again in the future." I sighed and continued, "I can resign." Olivia slightly furrowed her brows and said softly, "That's not what I came to talk to you about." She paused and then continued, "These days, I went back and thought about it. I can't lie to myself. I like you. Even though you lied to me, I still like you very much." Olivia lowered her eyes and said seriously, "But a pretend relationship can't last long. It took me a long time to finally understand that I like you not because you also like the holy mountain, not because you would take me skiing in Hokkaido, but because of the you who, no matter what difficulties you face, are not willing to give up, always have a clear plan for your life, know what you want, and are never distracted by external things. I like the you who is in tune with my soul. I always think that for two people to be together, having compatible values is more important than having similar hobbies. We are not only lovers but also friends for life. We should walk the same path instead of growing apart and eventually going our separate ways." She raised her head, and her light amber eyes looked at me earnestly. "I like you very much, Mr. James. Can we stop pretending from now on? I want to be with you forever." I was stunned. I had wanted to say a lot of things, but when I opened my mouth, my mind went blank. Since I was a child, I had never been firmly chosen. This kind of experience made me never have hope for relationships, so I was used to using means and tricks to obtain them. I once thought this was right and there was no problem. After all, there are so many people in the world who just make do with each other. True love only exists in novels and movies, like ghosts. Everyone says it exists, but no one has ever seen it. As long as you can find someone who suits you, it doesn't matter whether it's love or not. I thought what I was doing was okay until someone told me that she liked the real me and hoped we could be together forever. She was different from Sophia. If I used the same tricks on her as I did on Sophia, it would be an insult to her. In an instant, my surging emotions turned into a huge blank. I could have said a lot of things to make Olivia happy, but at this moment, I could only nod blankly and say, "Okay, I promise you." Olivia smiled. She rarely smiled, and this smile was like a cold pond breaking through thick ice, revealing a pool of spring water. She said, "Then I forgive you." From then on, I started getting along well with Olivia. I no longer deliberately studied her preferences but gradually adapted to each other. After dinner in the evening, instead of watching the movie she liked on purpose, we would snuggle on the sofa and watch horror movies. Olivia seemed calm on the surface, but at night, she had a nightmare for the first time. She woke up suddenly and threw herself into my arms, not saying a word for a long time. It was not until I was almost asleep that she whispered, "Honey, can we not watch horror movies anymore?" We no longer drank red wine. I took her to a small roadside restaurant to drink baijiu. She wasn't very good at drinking. Her face turned bright red from being choked, and she kept coughing. I laughed and patted her on the back. Olivia is not convinced. Later, I found out that she secretly bought a lot of baijiu at home, trying to practice her drinking ability. I really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Sophia left and didn't pester me anymore. I heard that for some reason, she suddenly got her tattoos removed, dyed her hair back to black, and went home to be a good girl. At the beginning of March, Olivia accepted my proposal. Somehow, Sophia found out about our engagement and insisted on asking me out to talk. After I told Olivia, I met Sophia on the halfway up the mountain. Below was the sea. The waves were smashed against the rocks, and seagulls were circling in the sky. Sophia was wearing a white dress, leaning against the railing, and handed me a hot drink. She took a sip and pretended to be relaxed, saying, "You two got engaged so soon. How long have you been together?" I smiled and said, "When you're with the right person, you don't need to wait long." Sophia snorted and then fell silent, looking at the sea. After a while, she said, "James, what about me? You just played with me and then threw me away when you got bored. Now you're happy and content. What should I do?" I said, "There are so many people chasing you. What are you worried about? Are you afraid you can't find a good man?" I patted her with a smile. Seeing that Sophia didn't smile, I withdrew my hand and said softly, "Sophia, actually, you don't really like me. If you really did, you wouldn't have betrayed me all the time when we were together. You just haven't been dumped before, and you're not willing to accept that I broke up with you first." Sophia didn't say anything, just sipping the drink in her hand one mouthful at a time. I handed her the hot drink and said, "I wish you happiness in the future. This time, I'm sincere." Then I turned around and left. After walking a long way, Sophia suddenly shouted with a trembling voice from behind, "But James, I really like you." I didn't stop, just waved my hand behind me without looking back and kept walking. At this moment, my phone rang. It was a message from Olivia. She said, "I've trained my drinking ability. Let's have a showdown at the barbecue stand downstairs tonight." I couldn't help but laugh and replied, "Okay, whoever gets drunk first is a dog." In the distance, the sky was vast and the sea was wide. The sunlight penetrated the clouds and shone down. Spring had really come.